This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Thank you for tuning into the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, where we talk the latest and greatest news in the world of sports. As always, I am Alex.
And I'm Anthony.
And we're back here to talk more sports today on Thursday, October 27th, and it's time to talk World Series baseball. We're going to be recapping Game 2. Last night was the more heavy-duty opening night of NBA basketball. More games last night. Almost, I think every team had a game last night that didn't play on Wednesday, of course.
Right.
And then we are going to be previewing, to end the show, we'll be previewing the Thursday night football game tonight between the Titans and the Jaguars.
Yay.
I know you're excited.
So excited.
I know you can't wait. But, unfortunately, we have to start with baseball first. And we will be talking about, of course, Game 2 of the World Series between the Cleveland Indians and the Chicago Cubs. In this one, after a 6-0 handling of the Cubbies, the Cubs turn around and do some handling of their own and win this one 5-1 behind a lot of production from Kyle Schwarber, who is being deemed this morning as the Schwarbino.
The Schwarbino.
The Schwarbino.
I mean, he's got that kind of Babe Ruth physique going.
That's a very good way of putting it. This is a game in which Jake Arrieta dominated for quite some time, with the plus side of having quite the output. They were leading all 9 innings. They scored 1 in the first, 1 in the third, 3 in the fifth, in which they really opened it up. Lots of impressive scoring there. So pretty much Rizzo doubled in the first. Schwarber did get a single. Zorbas tripled. It was a bad defensive play that led to a triple. Mm-hmm. Schwarber singled again to center field almost exactly the same way. And then they walked a run in also when the bases were loaded. Excuse me. Arrieta didn't give up his first hit until, I believe, the 6th inning. Mm-hmm. And it was pretty much a done deal from there. The Indians ended up only getting 4 hits throughout the entire game, 2 errors on them, one of which I believe they did charge on that triple. I think. I know one of them was on a tough play up the middle trying to turn 2 that Lindor just could not get to Kipnis.
Yeah. They
did get 1 run, though. That was on a wild pitch when I think the bases got loaded, or they were first and third.
Yeah, Kipnis scored on Arrieta's wild pitch.
Yeah, and then Arrieta ended up coming out after that for Montgomery, and then Chapman pitched, and he pitched lights out, of course, as per usual. But this was pretty dominated by the Cubs. I mean, the Cubs showed, as opposed to back-to-back shutouts with the Dodgers.
Right.
They showed what they did after that shutout. And they came in, after that second one at least, and they came and just lit it up. They showed that, they're capable of doing that again, and they got shut out on Monday, and they came out and really, on Tuesday, and they came out and really, obviously scoring 1 in the first, really set the tone for Game 2.
Yeah, they, like you said, in the World Series, they, didn't have a great start in Game 1, lost 6-0. You were Cubs fan, you might be worried because of back-to-back shutouts against the Dodgers, 1-0, 6-0. Came back, Kyle Schwarber. It's going to be weird with Kyle Schwarber because he's been the DH for the past 2 games.
Yeah, he's going to be like
American
a designated pinch hitter.
Yeah, he's going
to go to Chicago.
Because they still don't trust him necessarily to do baseball things because he tore his ACL to start the season, so he still might not be fully healthy to do.
And he's hitting singles, so just run down the first, Kyle.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Jake Arrieta, like you said, flirted with a no-hitter into the 6th inning. Kyle Schwarber basically just came back from the dead, just like, okay, we're going to insert you. Don't worry that you haven't played in, 6 months or anything else like that. It's fine.
Since April?
Yeah, so, he came in, did well. Kipnis, I believe he was the one that got the hit in the 6th inning.
To break it up?
Yeah.
I think so.
And now, starting next game, you're going to have Hendricks go for the Cubs, And it's one of those things where if you're the Cubs, you got to get, at least 2 in Chicago because you don't want to go back to Progressive Field down. And it's going to be interesting for the Cubs because they seem to be the team that's basically you can either score a lot of runs or you get shut out. Like, it's kind of matters like how they start off because they get to the 5th inning. If they don't have any runs or anything else like that, then they get a little tight. Then they kind of don't necessarily –
They don't play as full out as they normally would.
Yeah. And you look at someone, Rizzo's still struggling. Like, he went 1 for 3, but 0 for 4 to start off the World Series. So he's still kind of a little bit in a slump like he was and not hitting like he did in the regular season. But then again, I guess it's kind of hard to do that in such a limited amount of time. Like, we're only giving him 2 games. But, so far with the Cubs, it's, if you get 9 hits, you get 2 errors, it's going to help with scoring of runs. Even Francona basically said that, like, you have to play near perfect. Baseball to win because we saw last year in the ALCS or last round I should say they weren't hitting, like the whole team batting average was not even 200, so
and we saw at times in the NLDS and CS that it was like that.
So it's one of those things where neither or the Indians offense isn't exactly the best. The best thing about the team is probably Andrew Miller in that bullpen, and
Andrew Miller unfortunately had a kind of a rough go of it.
So he
yesterday at least.
Did he play yesterday?
I believe he did.
He didn't play yesterday.
Oh, okay. I know their bullpen.
Struggled, but he's
once looked woo.
Yeah, the bullpen didn't look as good for the Indians, but I think because he threw something like 46 pitches the day before Miller, so Francona was probably just like, we're just going to rest you because we don't
point on using you.
Yeah, there's no point at this point of using you. Yeah, yesterday's Miller had 46 pitches that he used, so I'm assuming tomorrow when he pitches because they're off today, just travel from Cleveland to Chicago. I assume once, they get back to Chicago for Game 3, if needed, they're going to throw him in.
Oh, yeah. One plus, though, for the Cubs, you said that Baez, is that who you're saying is still struggling? Or Rizzo?
Rizzo.
Well, the plus of that, though, is Zorbas is starting to really play well. Mm-hmm. He's 5 for 8 in his first 2 World Series games.
Right.
You have Schwarber obviously coming out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Addison Russell's playing really well since about the last few games of the NLCS.
Mm-hmm.
So you have other guys picking up the slack whom, this team was struggling offensively, like I said, in the NLDS and CS at times, obviously with back-to-back shutouts against the Dodgers,
Yeah.
So they do have that at least going for them in that sense, I think that that's definitely a plus for them because they're not having to rely on the same old guys every time. You know? So I think if they can keep that production up from the guys that maybe weren't expected to do the Ben Zorbas and Addison Russells of the team.
Yeah,
I think they're in a good spot.
Plus, now you're going. You're pitching Kyle Hendricks for Chicago, and he's been one of your best pitchers all year. You got through the Indians do have a good pitching staff, but you got through their best. Yeah, Game 1 was basically the one game that if you were gonna lose, that's one that's kind of not okay, but it's understandable. Like, you're throwing him. That's going to happen. And now you got Josh Tomlin, in Game 3 for Cleveland. He's, been okay, 13-9, 4.4 ERA. But Hendricks has just been.
And we've seen what Hendricks does in Chicago, too.
Yeah, Hendricks, 2.13 ERA, 16-8, solid chance to be a Cy Young in the National League. So, if you're the Cubs, you feel good at least that you got probably your second best pitcher because it all depends on how. What's his name? Lester does.
And Lester's always better at home also.
And Lester, God, poor Lester. Did you see the play that Lester had where he just, refused to throw to first base?
On Tuesday?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he does, man. He literally just does not do it. He knows he should, and he's like, I'm not going to hurt us worse.
It just felt so bad because, the dude was
He's got the first base throw yips.
Yeah, because, I forget who the runner was, but he basically was, halfway to second base.
He's like, oh, well, go ahead.
And then, he ran back to first base, and Lester was just, one of those things where just, and just, he never did.
I don't know what to do with my hands.
But, yeah, like I said, in Chicago, it should be a lot better for him, and it depends what they're going to do for Game 4, because I saw...
It's supposed to be Lester.
Is Lester?
Yeah. He was supposed to do 147.
Okay, so they're going to do the same thing that Cleveland did, because Cleveland's going to do the same thing with Kluber, so, okay.
Mm-hmm. And Kluber, we've seen, it can be... You can get to him when he's on the road, weirdly.
So, yeah, and with the Cubs, it's one of the things of just, if they can score, like I said, 1 or 2 runs early, I think that's when they kind of, ease up a little bit. They kind of feel themselves a little bit more because the whole team, to be fair, their offense is fantastic, but they're also young players, right? They're not used to this. This isn't like the Yankees in '09 when you had like Jeter and A-Rod and Cano and everyone else who've been doing this for years. Like these guys are pretty new outside of last year to this, so they're kind of. Then maybe if they don't score a couple of runs for the first 4 or 5 innings, they're kind of like tense up a little bit, and it's like, oh, okay, I kind of have to, step up now, and then you struggle after that.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. Now again, remember today we have an off day.
Right.
We are back to baseball, I believe, tomorrow, in which I'm sure you guys will preview that game.
Yeah, 100%.
In all of its glory, and of course we'll talk about where we're at in the series on Monday. As well, I think it can't be done by then, right?
Technically,
Monday,
yeah. Because I think Sunday is Game 5. I think Sunday's Game 5, so there's potential that
if the Cubs go straight through,
if they go straight through, which probably won't happen. That's kind of rare that you.
Or I guess if the Indians go straight through, because they have the same amount of wins.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
didn't think about that.
I did not. Just assuming someone would get a home win, but yeah, if either team sweeps in Chicago, then it could be done, but. Seeing how these two teams playing, I'm assuming it's going 6 or 7.
I'm thinking it's getting to Monday.
Yeah.
But, I've been wrong before. We're going to take our first break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk NBA basketball, some scores from the night, not funny, but funny-ish kind of story. And then we're going to talk about 2 big nights from somebody finally making his NBA debut after a long-awaited break from college to NBA, pros because of injuries.
Yep.
And somebody who, man, when he's healthy, he is just one of the best in the game. So we're going to take that break. We'll come right back here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And we are back here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Now, this is a big night in NBA in our little town of Sacramento because it is the first home game at the new Golden One Arena for the Kings, the Sacramento Kings, which Anthony and I are both fans of. He is going. Unfortunately, I am not going. I wish. But that's really cool for us. It's something that's been going on for a while now, 2 years in the making. It started October 26, 2014, in which they broke ground on the stadium. And it is finally here. The day has finally come in which that stadium opens. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun. Yeah, the arena, I've been in there once, and it looks really nice, so it's going to be fun to see them play finally, a regular season game, given that it's against the Spurs. And
yeah, as I said, the unfortunate side is against the Spurs. They won their last game at Sleep Train, right? Even though it was against the Thunder. Didn't they win that one?
I think so, yeah.
I'm pretty sure they did.
Yeah.
Because I was like, wow, what a way to go out against a better team.
Right.
What a way to come in against the best team almost.
Who just beat down the Warriors.
Yes. But that leads us to the NBA, and we'll be talking, just recap some scores real quick. The Heat won their opening game against the Magic, 108-96 in a Florida matchup. The Mavericks lose to the Pacers. A pretty solid game on the overtime. 130-121 in favor of the Pacers there. The Celtics beat the Nets. This one went to regulation, but they definitely scored a lot of points. 122-117 in favor of Boston. The Raptors beat the Pistons 109-91. The Hornets beat the Bucks 107-96. Grizzlies over the Timberwolves in a close ending there, 102-98. Nuggets over the Pelicans in also a somewhat close game, 107-102, and we will talk about that in a minute because I don't see how you can do what somebody in this game did and still lose. The Thunder defeat the 76ers in a closer game than most people probably thought it would be, 103-97. And then the Kings, the last 2 games of the night, the Kings in a decently, weirdly impressive win for them at one, in terms of style of play. They played defense. It was weird. Yeah. They won 113-94 over the Suns. And then the Lakers win their first game in the Kobe Bryant-less era, 120-114 over the Houston Rockets. Now we're going to go back. We're going to talk about 2 specific performances from last night. We're going to start. Oh, also, actually, no, I'll mention it in the second one, and I'll talk about because I only talk about the 76er game.
Okay.
Anthony Davis,
Yes.
of the Pelicans, the unibrow, the brow, as people call him, scored 50 points last night. Not only that, his stat line was pretty impressive, was it not?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty good. 50 points, 16 rebounds, 5 assists, 7 steals, and 4 blocks. He was 16 for 17 from the free throw line and 17 for 34 from the field. And they still lost.
Yeah, that's if you look at the thing, like, so he was 1 block away from the 5x5 thing, which is a really hard thing to get to.
It sounds like an in-and-out meal.
It is basically an in-and-out meal, yes. But like you said, 16 rebounds, 5 assists, 7 steals, 4 blocks, and 50 points. 17 of 34 from the field, 16 of 17 from the line. And if you look at it, he had 34 field goal attempts. The next highest was Frazier. He had 10.
Down goes Frazier.
Down goes Tim Frazier. But it's one of those things where he's going to be the guy. He has to be the guy because no one else on that team is any good. And I don't mean like, there's nobody on that team that has talent. I guess Tyreek Evans has some talent on that team.
Tyreek's not bad.
But, I mean, everyone else on that team, man. I mean, like, Omer Ashik, like, he was okay as far as, like, a fill-in guy, but he's not going to get you any kind of points that you would hope it would go well. I mean, everyone else on that team, like, I'm looking down this thing. Frazier, like, I honestly don't know who that dude is, and I'm not trying to, like, but, like, he's just no good. Drew Holiday didn't play.
Not bad, though.
But Buddy Hield will be good. But he's a rookie. Like, it's going to take a second for him.
I'll see ya.
You got the 8th grader, Lance Stevenson, who, ever since he left Indiana, so bad. I don't know how Frank, what's his name? The guy, the head coach for the Pacers.
The head coach for the Pacers?
Well, now he's head coach for Orlando. But I don't know how he was able to basically get both Lance Stevenson and Roy Hibbert to basically gel with that Pacers team and get them to do well, because basically now all they have is Paul George and
Frank Vogel?
Frank Vogel, that's what it is, yeah. Like, I don't know how he got both Roy Hibbert and Lance Stevenson to play well on the team, because since they've left the Pacers, they've been terrible.
Lance Stevenson, Mr. Blow on Your Ear.
Mr. Blow on Your Ear.
Don't forget, last year Davis did something pretty similar, except for maybe even better when he scored 59 with 20 rebounds against the Pacers last year.
That's the thing. Like, Anthony Davis is one of the best top 5, top 10 players in the NBA. The problem is he's never played a full season. He's never played 70 games in a season.
True.
Right?
And sorry, against the Pistons, not the Pacers.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he's great when he's healthy.
Yeah.
He's very good. He's one of those just weird players. He's big, and you expect him to play a big man's game, but he's athletic, and he can dunk, and he can shoot from the perimeter, and he can post up and shoot mid-range, and he's a good free throw shooter.
Yeah. He did the thing that messes people up sometimes. He had the thing where, because he said he can dribble, he can shoot and do all this stuff like that. He did that because he was small.
Quote unquote.
Right. I'm 5'10", 5'11". He was 6'3", small. But
he's not 6'3", is he?
No.
I was going to say, I was like, no way.
No, he's 6'11". But my point is, he was when he was in like high school, right?
Oh, I know he had that huge
growth. And then he had that
spurt.
huge growth, which kind of messes you up leg wise, because like you shouldn't grow that fast that soon. Like, you got to kind of go in spurts with this whole thing.
That's the whole thing when you run into stuff because you're not used to your length.
Mm-hmm. So like that'll mess people up sometimes, and their body doesn't kind of adjust to the fact that they grew so much. And like I said, he's never played more than 68 games in a whole season, and I don't think he was even. I think he came in the year after they had the lockout when there were 66 games. So it's not even like he had the thing where it's like, oh, he played 60, but there were 60. No, like it's always been 82 games with him. But I mean, the guy's 20 points and 9 rebounds, basically 20.9 and 9.7, so basically 21 and 10 through his whole career with 2.5 blocks. Like, the man is a freak of nature when he's out there, and you saw that last night with 50 points.
Yeah, I think the big downside is the fact that they lost this game.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing of just like, he's going to have to do that if they want to win games, because Denver's a relatively 500-ish team. Like, they're not a terrible team. And the Pelicans will win games against, call it the Nets, call it, the Lakers, stuff like that. They'll win those games against the bad teams, but against the good to great teams, like, he's going to have to basically do everything for them to have a chance to win.
Mm-hmm. He literally scored just shy of half of their points.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're going to have to figure something out because he can't score 50 every night.
Right. Yeah, he's not Will Chamberlain in that aspect.
Not at all. Moving to another player that actually made his debut, somebody who hasn't been healthy enough to play as opposed to stay healthy to play. And that would be Joel Embiid of the Philadelphia 76ers. He played well. No, not 50 points, but he scored 20 in the Sixers' loss. He looked as advertised, personally. He, I think, definitely showed some flashes of where he was drafted and why he was drafted to that height. I think that this is a good stepping stone for him.
Yeah, no, 100%. Joel Embiid, he was the third pick back in the 2014 draft, and it was one of those things of you saw the potential that the man had. It was just with the injuries that he had, he was just always kind of hurt and just couldn't come play. Every time he just had a little bit of a setback, but he only played 22 minutes.
And 2 minutes over his 20-minute he's supposed to only play 20 minutes.
Yeah, so and he's, like I said, 20 points. And he was in that draft with Andrew Wiggins and Jabari Parker. And we've seen both of those guys play, Andrew Wiggins a little bit better. Parker's kind of been hit or miss with the Bucks. But if he can stay healthy, right, and that's the thing that's going to be with Joel Embiid, they're basically going to have him on a minutes limit because they don't want to basically overuse
until they can
him.
Be told otherwise or shown otherwise.
Yeah, because he has been a little bit injury-ridden, obviously, not playing for 2 years. But it's one of those things where they just want to basically get him healthy enough, kind of like a pitcher where you have a pitch count, stuff like that, just to make sure that his legs don't basically give out. Because if he can stay healthy, we, give the Sixers a lot of junk and everything else like that just because they have, 5 big men on the team, and that's not even an exaggeration between him and Noel and everybody else. But if he can stay healthy, he is one of the building blocks of the team, and his nickname, one of the best nicknames in the NBA.
Yeah, you like it.
It's the process. Because that was the joke every time with Sam Hinkie was just like, trust the process, trust the process. Well, Hinkie's gone now because they basically got tired of losing on purpose for 3 years. And so I don't know if he gave himself the nickname or somebody else, but he's like, his nickname is the process. And, 20 points, 22 minutes, that's a pretty good way to start.
Yeah, 20 points and 7 rebounds.
Yeah, and another part in that game, which I'm going to enjoy all year, just the entirety of the year. Just
you
watching,
carried into exactly what I'm thinking of.
Just Russell Westbrook doing Russell Westbrook things, not caring about your passing, not caring about your team play. Just like no, just hair on fire, going 100 miles an hour the entire time. Because sort of around the same thing, leading shot taker, 21 shots in the game, 32 points, 12 rebounds, 9 assists. Just had to do everything to win the game, and maybe you don't like the fact that they only won by 6 because you're hoping that the Thunder can be a good team post Kevin Durant. But, Westbrook is here for the points. Westbrook is here for – he's already the guy that goes 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, and I'll tell you one person who didn't like what Westbrook was doing last night.
Oh, that man, yes.
And that is a 76ers fan who was wearing an Allen Iverson jersey and was escorted out of Wells Fargo Center
100%, yeah.
halfway through the first quarter.
Yeah.
Because he knew what was coming after giving him the double bird. Just flipping him the middle fingers at Russell Westbrook. And Westbrook, after the game, said, yeah, I know. That's crazy, right? I turned a new leaf, though. I leave that alone because last year that cost me $25,000. The fan, he'll be all right. They can say whatever they want, but the players to the players, and they do what they want. But my job is to play basketball, and that's what I'm going to do. Wow.
Well, he's kind of right, though, because, the fan, he's going to get kicked out, and maybe he can't come back to the arena, or maybe they'll, ban him for, a handful of games, maybe the season or whatever.
And then the fans started chanting, KD left you.
Yeah. That's both of them are going to get a lot of flack from teams, from players, not from players, from fans, the whole season, just trying to get in Westbrook's head. And Westbrook had, his reaction when it happened was great, because he kind of looked at, the ref, did he?
With his hands up, he says, "Can he do that?"
Yeah, it's what? It's one thing if you say you suck, or even throw one middle finger, but he went full, just
Two
double, just
and then quoted what that means.
Yeah,
he said the phrase in which that gesture stands for.
Yeah, just he went full and correct. That was that deep into the game, or was that?
That was literally halfway through the first.
Yeah, it wasn't he was in the middle of the third quarter, and he was just
4 minutes and 52 seconds remaining in the quarter.
Yeah,
Westbrook finished a layup and was fouled.
Yeah, it's not like you tailgated before, because it's not really NBA style. You don't really tailgate before a game. He couldn't have been thrashed by that time. He was just
no. It was. That's all it was. Literally, it was a fan, first game of the year.
Yeah.
Westbrook did that thing, and then, like most players in professional sports do, he was near the baseline. He kind of flexed and yelled, and like the LeBron thing, and the fan yelled back.
He was ready. He was ready to go right back.
He was ready. He's like, oh, yeah? Take this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man, but I thought that was funny, but not in like a good way. Like, it was a bad kind of funny, but...
Well, yeah, it didn't go, he didn't go full Ron Artest.
Exactly.
He just he did what Ron Artest did in the beginning, where he's just like, I'm going to cool down, I'm going to lay down on this table, I'm just going to cool down, after that, the guy threw the cup on him, and then Malice at the Palace. But Westbrook did, his reaction was just really funny. Just like, can he say that? Is that okay? I'm not going to say anything.
Face too. He's like,
yeah.
What? Come on. It was literally like if you could put a face on the phrase "Come on, son."
Basically, yeah,
that's what it was.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh Lord, let's move on. We're going to take our last break.
Cool.
Come back, and real quick, we're going to preview tonight's Thursday night football game between the Tennessee Titans and the visiting Jacksonville Jaguars in just a moment here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back here at the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, and we're going to be previewing tonight's Thursday night football game between the Tennessee Titans and the visiting Jacksonville Jaguars. It's an AFC South matchup?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is.
AFC
5:25 tonight, Pacific Standard Time. Of course, that's a late game for anybody on the East Coast. 8:25. It's only on NFL Network. I know they like to do NFL Network and CBS, throughout the season, but every once in a while it's only on NFL Network, excluding obviously. I'm talking broadcast, networks here,
right?
Excluding Twitter, which they've been doing this year.
Yeah.
But anyways, tonight we have a 2-4 team with the Jacksonville Jaguars, of course, and a Tennessee Titan team sitting at 3-4. Excuse me. Now, this is going to be an interesting game for a couple reasons.
Sure.
The obvious ones. This team's no good.
Right.
Blah, blah, blah. So on and so forth. But, excuse me. Two interesting things to me is you have Blake Bortles, who's not playing very great this year.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the Titans with Marcus Mariota, who they've been playing well. They really have. But they cannot win at home. Marcus Mariota's won at home twice in his entire career.
Right.
The Titans don't have a great defense. So is this a game in which Bortles can start to really turn the corner on this season? The Jaguars don't have a great defense. Can Marcus Mariota lead his team to a win at home? Their leading receiver currently is their tight end, Delaney Walker.
Right. 330
yards and 3 touchdowns, 330 yards through, this is week 8. That's, you hope for more. But then again, Allen Hurns is the leading receiver for the Jaguars, and he has 345 yards. So interesting in that sense. TJ Yeldon, leading rusher for the Jaguars, of course, because of the unfortunate circumstances in which their starting running back did not get much starting time because of a mystery injury to start the year. So Yeldon's the leading rusher there with 200 yards even. DeMarco Murray is having probably his best year since he was with the Cowboys.
Right.
A renaissance year, totaling 633 yards and 5 touchdowns, and that is not even including his receiving numbers, which aren't horrible. They're not great, but not bad at all. We look at any notable injuries. Pretty much the only players that we have listed as out for sure in this game are cornerback Parrish Cox, safety Rashad Johnson, and Quinton Spann, who is a guard there for the Titans. We have Julius Thomas, who is questionable, has been questionable for the last few weeks before every game with the Jaguars, and Jared Odrick of the Jaguars. So my question to you is, who do you think is going to win this game after pretty much what I laid out there for you in this one? The Jaguars have played in a lot of close games, but they can't seem to close the deal, and then they get blown out the next week after you think they are onto something. And the Titans, they just can't win at home.
Right. I would still go with the Titans just because generally, worst case scenario, it's one of those things where you just take the team at home on Thursday Night Football because there's so few time to kind of get your body right and everything else like that. And you talked about how he only has 2 wins, Marcus Mariota, throughout his whole career. Well, the first win he had at home was against the Jaguars back in 2015. Blake Bortles is one of those things where the Jaguars as a whole are an okay team. They have 2 wins, but both of those wins are very, very close wins. They have 2 losses that were very close, and they got 2 games where they got blown out. Right, they came close against the Packers, lost 27-23. They lost against the Ravens 19-17. Their 2 wins are by a combined 4 points, but then they got beat down by the Raiders and they got beat down by the Chargers of all teams.
Of all teams. Yeah.
I mean, the Chargers are just a weird team. Like they
really are. They're like a good bad team. They're a unfortunate team when it comes to the injuries, for sure. They're probably the worst off this year with injuries next to the Packers, I guess.
Yeah.
The Packers could be considered to have a rough year when it comes to injuries, but they are like I don't even know how to phrase it.
Just a walking.
They're a skillfully bad team.
Well, the one saving grace for the Chargers is Phillip Rivers.
Exactly.
Like if he goes down, then the team's going to be 3-13.
Oh yeah, no, we saw with the Ravens last year. I mean, they were losing a lot of games, but they were in most of them. Then Flacco went down, and then, game over, man, game over. Yeah. Except for when they beat the Steelers with Ryan Mallett. So don't get me started on that.
It's a nice little pain in the side for you.
That hurt. Yeah, but I mean, whatever.
But I mean, so the Jaguars, they, as a team, they're okay. Their running back situation's not the best. Like you said, TJ Yeldon's the leading rusher, but he's only got 200 yards.
Yeah.
Jay Ajayi's done that more in one game.
Twice. Yeah, he had more than that twice in one game.
So, it's one of those things where, and even the receivers they have last year, because that was the thing with the Jaguars last year, was you had the guys,
Hearns and Robinson.
So like you had them.
And then you still have Lee also.
Marquise Lee. So it's one of those things where they're not doing the same things as you hope they would this year, because you even have people like Jalen Ramsey, Dante Fowler, these people on defense that you thought would be able to like step up and transition. Miles Jack. But it hasn't been what you would hope, because that whole division.
Jeremiah and I talked about it on the football show, and I definitely saw them as a team that would be, I think it could have a good defense and a good young offense, but they needed to grow together. It's hard to throw a young team together like that with a lot of skill and win games immediately.
Yeah, and with the Titans, they're an okay team. Like, they're 3-4, and they're, close to the top of the division, right? Like, they're only a game behind Houston, and Houston's not, we've seen how bad Osweiler is. Well, Osweiler's no good. They could get up and win the division, but they're doing the same thing. They're losing games, but they're losing games close. Lost by 7 to both the Texans and the Raiders. They lost by 8 to the Colts. They lost by 9 to the Vikings. All the games they've lost, they've at least pretty much been in the game and had a chance to win all of the games. I think you said DeMarco Murray is basically the best he's been since he left Dallas. So they have, worst case scenario, something they can absolutely rely on, is just to be like, okay, Mariota's not doing well. All right, DeMarco, go. Just help us out. Get us around 100 yards, and, maybe we can take one from Jacksonville. Like I said, it's in Tennessee.
Yep. Nissan Stadium.
We saw that. Where it is? Nissan Stadium? And, we've seen this before with the Thursday Night Football games, right? It was the Chargers and the Broncos, and everyone's like, oh, the Broncos. And the Chargers got it, because it's one of those things where, short week, do what you do well. People are still battered and beaten because football hurts.
Yes,
for lack of a better explanation. But yeah, I would say you probably expect a good day from DeMarco Murray, and probably have the Tennessee Titans win the game.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of want to go Jaguars on this one. Despite who wins, I think everybody loses in this one.
So one of my good friends is a Jacksonville Jaguars fan. I didn't know those exist, but they exist.
They do.
And
what else you can do in Jacksonville? TGI Fridays.
Well, he lives here. Like, he lives in Sacramento. It's not even like he's in Florida. Like, I don't know how.
I don't get it.
Right. But, I've asked him, food truck. I've asked him, about the game, like, how are they doing? And he's just like, he just is defeated the whole time. Like, it's not even like, it's like, oh, they're playing well, because he did that last year. Oh, they're playing well. Like, that's confidence. This year, he's just like, no, they stink. Like, he has no faith in them. Did you watch? Like, I saw the game last week. Don't ask me why I watched it, because it was on TV with the Raiders and the Jaguars.
Football, I understand.
And there was, like, literally 25 penalties in the whole game.
Oh, it was bad.
So, they're a very undisciplined team, too. And I just can't not see DeMarco Murray running for about 100 yards against them.
I mean, I hope so. He's on my fantasy team.
That would help for you.
As it stands right now, points per game for these teams are pretty much even. 19.5 for the Jaguars and 20.9 for the Titans.
Right.
Points allowed, 26.7 for the Jaguars and 23 even for the Titans. But one thing that they can look at is the Titans have only given up 87 yards on the ground through most of their games. 109 average for the Jaguars. So
there you go.
There you go. That might be the backbreaker.
Yeah.
But, of course, you guys will talk about it tomorrow and recap this game.
Yes, we will.
On the sports show, and I'm sure the football show, too. But we have to get going because we have to record that football show.
Yes, we do.
So, as always, we'd like to thank you for listening. Ben will be back tomorrow along with Anthony. As always, we'd like to thank you again for listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. I am Alex.
And I'm Anthony.
And for Ben, we'd like to say thank you for listening, and they will see you tomorrow. I'll be back on Monday. You guys enjoy your weekend of football. Enjoy your weekend of sports, NBA. World Series gets going again tomorrow, and we'll talk to you then. You guys have a good rest of your weekend, and enjoy the sports.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.